All right, guys, we are here doing our first ever Living CDA Show podcast during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so we are doing our very first Zoom edition of the Living CDA Show. And I'm super excited that an old friend of mine and a local guy, Doug Johnson, owner of Fire Artisan Pizza and other things, is here to talk with us today. Thanks for coming, Doug. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's great to be able to have this medium to be able to talk for sure.
I know. First off, I just need to apologize for picking the most glorious sunny afternoon to ask you to come on a video chat. But
well, I got to tell you, it's not a problem because where our house is, I have a unencumbered view to the mountains, and so it feels like I'm sitting outside. It's all good.
That's awesome. Very cool. So let's just get right into it. Why don't you give us just a high level elevator pitch of just kind of yourself and your background, where you're from, kind of what led you to Coeur d'Alene. If I'm right, you're not originally from Coeur d'Alene, correct?
Yeah, no, not originally from. My wife, her dad was born in Coeur d'Alene in the early 20s. And so my wife's family has been here for a long, long time. So I married into the natives, but I've been here for over 30 years. So I feel pretty native compared to other people sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
But
local.
yeah, I moved here in '86 when the resort, the year that the Coeur d'Alene Resort opened, and that's what brought me here. I was born in the Tri-Cities area. My mom and dad owned a farm there, a pretty large farm. And I pretty much thought as I was growing up and going through high school and stuff that I would just be a farmer. I loved it. We raised crops and I was used to that lifestyle. I had some dairy cattle that I owned, and I was on that track. And my dad got an offer to buy the farm from someone, and so he decided to get out. And that was in 1982. Tells you how old I am. I was a sophomore in high school, and all of a sudden I was no longer going to be a farmer. We moved into town, and I got a job at a hotel in the Tri-Cities, and the lady that was my boss there took the job of director of catering at the Coeur d'Alene Resort when it opened, and she needed some experienced people. And so I was 2 years into my junior college experience and out of money, and thought Coeur d'Alene seemed like a pretty cool place. And so I'm going to move to Coeur d'Alene, and I started working at the resort, and I met my wife there. She was working there, and I bought a house, and one thing led to another. My intention was to go back to college, and I never did, because I just kept working my way up through the resort ranks, and I worked there for 11 years, and became experienced in really all aspects of the hotel. And then I got an offer to be the general manager at the Hotel Luso when it opened in Spokane. And so I took that opportunity, did that for 5 years, and through a strange set of circumstances, I had an acquaintance with, and this is kind of where starts to get into where Connor and I know each other. I was friends with Dr. Paul Berger and his son, who founded Nighthawk Radiology Services. And when they started that in the year 2000, they asked me to come and start with them in this kind of fledgling company, Nighthawk Radiology Services. And so I did that, went to go work with them, and that was a great idea. Did the Nighthawk thing for 10 years.
Yep.
And then when Nighthawk sold to a competitor, I left and didn't know what I was going to do. And that's when the restaurant, Fire Artisan Pizza, came in. So
yeah, That's when you kind of circle back to your roots a little bit, it sounds like. And
Yeah,
and so, yeah, speaking of that, I guess before we go into the kind of history of fire and how that came about and building that restaurant and starting a, brand new business out of scratch, let's just
sure.
tackle the issue that that everyone's going through right now, and really all over the world, not just in our local area, but
Right.
we see the effects with small local businesses with the shutdowns and everything that's happened with COVID-19. One of the reasons I really wanted to get in touch with you, and I'm glad you were able to come on, is because when you see something as crazy as this happen, and you realize the ramification it's going to have to small businesses, and particularly restaurant and bars, because it's just such a small margin business. It was really interesting to see kind of how people reacted right off the bat. And I was, just kind of looking at all the businesses, I was super impressed with you guys at Fire and how quickly you pivoted. Like, I think you can either have the deer in the headlight reaction, or you can get immediately proactive. And it seemed like that's the route you went. Can you tell us a little bit about how you saw that coming and decided to move on it?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I could take credit for it. I mean, I've been really blessed to have partners in this venture. We have Nighthawk roots together, my partners and I, and they're interesting guys in that they have a really global experience, and global, I mean literally worldwide experience. Their perspective. One of them actually lives in Phoenix. The other one lives in Liberty Lake. But they have just such a rich background that they see things, I think, in a different perspective than somebody like me who's just right here in Coeur d'Alene and has been here for a long time. And I think because of their different experiences and the things they looked at, they immediately, I think, recognized the challenges that this was going to face early on, and maybe the way that we should react. I mean, we had a lot of discussions about it. I mean, it wasn't something like, oh yeah, let's just do this and that's what happened. I mean, it was a lot of individual perspectives about the operations, about how the employees would react, what other people were doing, what the government was saying, which changed almost daily during that time. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's been kind of I actually started keeping a diary starting March 12th. I thought, I want to just kind of keep perspective on what's happening. And looking back at that diary, it's been pretty interesting because it seems like such a long time ago now. I mean, if you say, "Oh, when did you decide to go to go only and switch your business model?" That was only March 16th. I mean, that's like three weeks ago. So it seems like 3 months ago. But anyway, yeah, there was just a lot of. I think the biggest thing that allowed us to come to that decision maybe earlier and maybe easier than other restaurants did is just the type of food that we sold.
Okay.
Pizza is portable, and I also am a partner in the Snake Pit, and we immediately pivoted up there to just trying to do barbecue to go because it's portable too.
Mhm.
But I think Fire, with its location and the type of food that we had, it just made it a lot easier to pivot to the curbside service. You can do it in a healthy manner, which was another thing that we had to consider. There was just a lot of aspects of it. The actual health, we considered just, okay, is it even safe to be open totally? Can we serve products safely and not expose our employees to the virus? Are
Right.
people even going to be out and about and want to pick up food? Those are all things that we thought about. And, you know, we actually early on, we were crushed. I mean, the amount of the response to what we did was tremendous. We couldn't expected that. And all of a sudden we had a different problem. We had a production problem. We couldn't, you know, the restaurant is the seating in the restaurant is the limiting factor to how much food you can produce or have to produce. You know, you can only fit 60 people inside of there and maybe 12 outside and take a few to-go orders. All of a sudden, we went from that being the limiting factor to how much food can we produce in an hour, you know, being the limiting factor, because the phone just rang and it just rang and rang and rang. We had to add phone lines and it was just, it was like, okay, people are responding to this. We need to retool the business. So, there were just a lot of things that happened that were really interesting. In retrospect, looking back, you think, oh, we were really thinking, man, if we can just put together a break-even strategy, we'll be in good shape, because we were getting strange guidance from around the world. You know, the inputs from different countries were scary in some places, and there are so much things to digest. And that's where a partnership, I think, is really valuable. You can get so many different people's perspectives and also emotions. You know, we have people that are intense about certain things and relaxed about certain things. And so I think you can come to better conclusions if you have different inputs.
So what is the business, how is the business doing right now? You're able to add the phone lines. I mean, have you kind of worked out some of the production kinks and?
Yeah.
I mean, is that fair to ask?
Yeah, it is. It's going well. It's, you know, I think we still have, you know, there are certain periods of time where we have more calls maybe coming in than we can. So we're having to quote longer wait times for pizzas. But you know, the people answering the phones are getting better at kind of estimating what's going to happen, how long those wait times are going to be. We've switched to we have an online order system now, which is actually a side benefit of all this. We never really felt like there was a need to do that. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is because of cash handling and, you know, face-to-face talking and all that kind of stuff. It's a much safer way to take orders and deliver food. So yeah, obviously when you change your model, there's going to be wrinkles in the operations, and then also trying to get your employees to buy in to what you're doing, because 100% to-go business is not what they signed up for.
Yeah. Right.
You know, we're a mid kind of range restaurant that people can go enjoy a $80 bottle of wine and sit and, you know, enjoy themselves. And the entertainment factor to the employees is a big reason why they work there. So anyway, it's different for everyone, but they're thankful, I think, that they have opportunity to work and have an outlet for their energy, and so it's going well.
Well, yeah, and speaking to the employee buy-in, can you talk a little bit, because the other thing I saw that was pretty unique and awesome is the fact that proceeds were being put back into the pockets of the employees. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's right.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah, I mean,
right on that. I mean, that's not something I've seen many companies agree to do.
Well, I think again, I wish I could, you know, say that, oh, well, that was my idea. It wasn't. You know, it was just one of those things where, again, a couple of my partners were like, they were looking at other things that were happening around the world, you know, and what different companies were doing. And so I think our goal was we didn't know how long it was going to last. At that point, there was no discussion really from the federal government on what was going to happen in terms of assistance.
Right.
There was no guidance even from the state or the city at that point yet about what should be done. But the outbreak was literally, the almost the very first people with COVID-19 were in Spokane. I mean, they were brought there and so the fact that this could come to us was becoming a reality. And so our goal was early on was to say, okay, let's just assume that this ends before the summertime. How do we maintain a core group of staff so that we can take advantage of the summertime? That was kind of our mentality, so that we could hit the ground running. And we thought this is kind of the way to do it. And I mean, that's the short version of how the discussion went. But I think that was our goal, was to say, how do we keep a core group of our key staff trained and in rhythm? Because once you shut something down, a restaurant, it's not just as easy as, okay, let's open up the doors again. You have to order food. You have to, in our business, there's days and days of prep that you have to do in order to be able to, the dough is a multi-day process. So, I mean, you can't just open up the doors and go again. So starting a factory again is keeping it going, I think, is going to be really important to hitting the ground running when this is all done. And who knows when that's going to be.
Right. And I'm hoping that bounces back. People are going to want to go out and frequent businesses even more than before, I believe. Kind of a slingshot effect, I'm hoping. So,
man.
Yeah, pent up demand for sure. And I do want to commend you. I mean, because those are not easy decisions to make, but you guys seem to do it. It sounds like collectively from the leadership quickly and act and just go for it instead of just, debating and kind of worrying about what's going to happen. So that's awesome. Is there a way to it doesn't sound like you guys are, in need of any more calls, but obviously more business is good.
No, you can't ever, assume that things are always going to be the same way. I mean, I think early on, people were really, happy that there was this kind of safe and good way to get good food from a restaurant. But I mean, who knows how long people are going to even have money. And so the marketing for the available dollars is going to become, critical if that's the case. I don't believe it's going to be the case, but I think to answer your question, the best way to order from us is to go to fireartisanpizza.com. Okay. And go to the online order button up in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see the menu and order some delicious salads and unique pizzas cooked in our wood-fired oven. So
nice. That's awesome.
That's been kind of a fun thing. That's been kind of a fun thing to do. I've been gathering firewood during this downtime. Going down to the Tri-Cities area. I have friends down there that's where I get my firewood from. And so some of these days have been kind of nice to just head down and go get loads of firewood and be prepared for the summertime. So
awesome.
Very cool.
Cool. So, and are you doing the same thing? Do you have other restaurants, right? Or
so
are they?
So I'm a partner in the Snake Pit. So we've got that. We actually have that shut down right now. It's remote. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Snake Pit, but it's a mile up the Coeur d'Alene River, just north of Kingston. And we tried to do some to-go there, and it's just kind of too remote for people to drive and get stuff there. And so we're doing side projects there. We're refinishing the 50-year-old hardwood floors up there and doing some cleaning projects and that sort of thing.
Cool.
But yeah, we have a licensing agreement with a couple of other restaurants, Fire Artisan Pizza in Montana. There's a couple of Fire Artisan Pizzas over there. One's in Great Falls and one's in Bozeman. We do not own those.
Gotcha.
We have just licensed our brand and recipes to them. Bozeman has actually, they've closed down all eating establishments. So that was a decision that their city government made. And then Great Falls is doing to go also. So,
Okay.
and they're clicking along.
Cool. Well, now that we talked about that a little bit, let's circle back to kind of the beginning of Fire. I know, for people watching or listening, where we met each other was at Nighthawk. That was the first job I got out of college, and we both moved on. After you moved on, I mean, was this a thought in your mind? While you were there, or did it come after the fact? And how did that kind of come to be? I know it has was it three owners? Three of you guys are all kind of from Nighthawk.
Yeah. So I became really good friends with Paul Carty and John Cardosa.
Mm-hmm.
They were executives within the Nighthawk team, and John, and I think Paul actually at some point too, lived in Washington, D.C. In a prior work experience. And there was a place that John, every time I would go to Washington, D.C. on Nighthawk business, he would say, "You got to go to this place called Pizzeria Paradiso. They serve wood-fired pizza there, and it's in a 200-year-old building, and it's just awesome." And so I started going there. We had customers in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And I just fell in love with this place. And wood-fired pizza wasn't a big deal here. There was one restaurant within probably 300 miles of Coeur d'Alene that did wood-fired pizza. Well, actually two. They were Tomato Street. Tomato Street did wood-fired pizza. But it wasn't a core part of their business. It was just kind of a side thing. But anyway, the Pizzeria Paradiso in Washington, D.C. was just something that we all loved and when Nighthawk sold in 2010, I didn't have a place to go. I had a non-compete agreement. And so I couldn't be in the teleradiology business at all. I couldn't compete in that space for a year. And so our thought was, hey, let's bring wood-fired pizza to Coeur d'Alene and give that a shot. Give Doug something to do for a year while his non-compete runs out, and then we might do something together in the teleradiology, telemedicine sphere. And Fire just took off. I mean, it was just a home run from the very beginning. And I never left that because it was just going so well. So that's kind of how that all went down.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think one of the cool things I remember when you were opening, I mean, at that time, like you said, there wasn't a lot of wood-fired pizza, especially around here. But not only that, there wasn't any really cool, hip restaurants with the type of vibe that you guys opened with, where you felt like you were like going to a restaurant in Seattle, in Coeur d'Alene. Was that?
It's hard to imagine. Yeah, it's hard to imagine now because 2008 was a total disaster. I mean, it was, the market crashed and home prices went, in the tank. And so when we when Nighthawk sold in 2010, it was still kind of depressed around here. And so we were on the front edge, I think, of the financial revival. And the timing was just really good for us. And fortunately, I think we partnered with the right architect firm, HDG, They had some really cool kind of cutting edge ideas. That was really important. You know, the logoing, the restaurant design, the menu was really kind of a collaboration between the chef that we had and me, and ideas that John and Paul had from visiting other places. I mean, man, we ate a ton of pizza. We ate so much pizza in the 3 months ramping up to Fire's opening. It was just like, wow, we tried so many different things. But
research and development.
I know it was
R&D.
really, yeah. I mean, that's the great thing about the restaurant business. Research in the restaurant business is pretty tasty. But
you wanted it downtown, or how did you land on the location? Because I think that's, I mean, you've got a great spot where you're at there.
well, you know, the downtown's always been pretty solid with its occupancy of buildings. And at that time, there were really only a couple of downtown space. We wanted to be downtown. We loved that kind of older building vibe and just kind of the, you know, rehabbing an old building, the thought of that. And so that was really the only place that was big enough and that was available downtown Coeur d'Alene. And, you know, originally, again, it was interesting to think about because things are so much different now, but we literally balked at securing that space because it was too far away from the central action.
The resort.
Yeah, it was like, okay, it's the perspective is so weird, but we thought, oh gosh, we got to be closer to that corner of 4th and Sherman. You know, that's where all the action kind of ends. And I think what we did was in putting that there, we moved the action. I mean, we literally, I think it stretched downtown just a little bit. And then just a couple of years after we opened, then Crafted opened up, and that just, you know, really kind of continued to pull people down that way. So it's interesting thinking back about the evolution of not only our business, but everybody's business in Coeur d'Alene. It's kind of fun to think about.
Totally. Yeah, go ahead, Lexi.
I was going to say, so you said right out of the gate it was a home run. Have you had many obstacles to overcome, or has it just been like serendipitous? Everything's kind of been, you know, good.
Well, I mean, of course there's obstacles. You know, I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody would be successful. But you know, again, really great partners, people with a lot of experience in really big business. I mean, one of my partners worked for Goldman Sachs and lived in New York City working for Goldman Sachs for a while. Where they both met, the other two partners where they met was in, they were both nuclear submarine instructors in the Navy. Wow. And so they're really bright guys. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of their part of the team. But anyway, when everybody put their heads together, me with my restaurant experience, them with their business and marketing experience, you know, we were able to kind of get through any challenges we might have had.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that, I mean, for this show in particular, kind of the gist of what we're trying to do is, you know, inform people locally, you know, maybe entrepreneurs that are trying to do stuff and kind of give them stories of, you know, other people that are doing it. Mm-hmm. And like you said, a great partnership. Is there another maybe couple key points if someone's looking to start a restaurant that you would say are, you know, non-negotiable, what you have to be amazingly good at to be successful?
Boy, it's every one of them is different. I mean, one of the downsides of having your first restaurant be successful is that you think it's, you know, it's going to be that all the rest of them are going to be successful.
Right.
And that's just not the case. There's so many things to consider, you know, this whole location thing, the timing of opening the certain style of restaurant. You know, we were ahead of the curve when it came to wood-fired pizza, and now, you know, we were really the first to market here in Coeur d'Alene, and there's a half a dozen now in Coeur d'Alene and Hayden Lake and the surrounding areas. So, you know, that has something to do with it. But I think in general, just basic business practices, really managing the dollars well. You know, there's labor and product cost. If you can get those two things where they need to be, and be out there hustling for sales, you're going to do okay. But we just kind of had a product that had naturally some good product cost outcomes. I mean, and then, you know, I had the advantage of working at the resort for 10 years. And so I was kind of known in the downtown area. And I also hired a guy, Sam Lang. I don't know if you guys know Sam or not. He's the sommelier at Beverly's restaurant. And I hired him as kind of the beverage manager there. And he just, I mean, I think the community just thought, hey, if Sam's involved, it's going to be a good one. You know, yeah. He added a lot of validation to the restaurant. So, yeah, I guess if I would just say that, you know, the numbers are correct. Don't discount the value of great accounting. I mean, so many people, if you can't measure what you're doing, you can't manage what you're doing. And I am horrible at that. And so making sure that you have somebody that is paying attention to reporting is just, I can't stress that enough. There's a lot of people that get into the restaurant business for the romance of the food and the wine. And, you know, I love people and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if you can't track the dollars and know where they're going, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, no, that's
great.
I
mean, I hate to make the restaurant sound, you know, as unromantic as it can be, but the reality is it's very important.
Yeah, I think that translates to across all type of businesses.
Yep.
So very cool. Lexi, you want to jump into the local faves questions?
Yeah. Real quick, Doug, we asked everybody that we talked to a couple of local faves. So the first one is, what's your go-to coffee place in Coeur d'Alene?
I guess it kind of depends on the time of year, but I think in general, I really like Coeur d'Alene coffee. I love in the wintertime the fire there, and I love the brick and everything around there. Evans Brothers makes a really great cup of coffee. But I would say in general, because of the location of you know, kind of there's three coffee places down there. Vault, you know, there's Vault, which is great, and Coeur d'Alene Coffee, Fine Brewed, and Evans Brothers. I mean, I jump around to all of those.
Make the circle.
Yep, that's right.
So if you're going to go out to dinner and you're not eating pizza, what's your go-to place?
There's other food than pizza?
Or what? Or snake pit.
Oh, yeah. There's a snake pit. Yeah.
I love the snake pit.
My default, I think, is kind of Moontime. I mean, so consistent and unique. Their specials, their pasta special. I don't care if I love their pasta special. It's always great. So, and they're one of the few places in town that has Guinness. And so I love Guinness, a pint there at Moontime.
Gotcha.
Nice.
So last one, if you have somebody visiting you in Coeur d'Alene for a day, what do you tell them to do? What's the must-do thing in Coeur d'Alene for you?
Well, I think it kind of depends on, it's like somebody says, what's the best pizza on the menu? I always ask, well, what do you like? You know? And so it depends on what they're into. You know, if they love hiking and stuff like that, I love taking people to Mineral Ridge. That's just a fantastic, just out of town a little bit. I love taking people to the Snake Pit, and it's not self-serving. I mean, it is the oldest restaurant in the state of Idaho, and you can spend hours walking around in that place. and looking at all the stuff on the wall, the bullet holes in the wall, and the food is great. But I mean, it's an interesting place. And the Cataldo Mission, I'm a history buff. In fact, that's what I was studying before I got sidetracked into the restaurant business. So the history of the Silver Valley is very interesting. Going, doing the mining tours. And that's what's cool about Mineral Ridge too. You can see holes in the ground there from when these miners, back in the 1800s were digging holes in the ground. So I just love history. And so that's where I generally kind of point people. The Museum of North Idaho, what a great thing that we have in our community. That museum just really sheds light on the history of Coeur d'Alene. I love it.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Is there any promotions? I mean, anything going on? Obviously, we talked about the to-go orders at Fire. I guess, you got that, service model now running pretty well. Anything that you could maybe share about?
Yeah, I mean, at Fire, we're running 2 for $22. 2 pizzas for $22. So, go online. That's what all of our pizzas will be until we open up again, regular business. We're thinking, I mean, I don't know. We'll kind of evaluate how that goes. But at the end of the day, I think, that's really the promotion there. Go visit our website and go to the Snake Pit website too. That's snakepitidaho.com. That's a great read. There's pictures of our food and there's history on that page too. And so that's a fun thing to do too. But visit that snakepitidaho.com website too. It's fun.
Awesome. Sweet, Doug. Well, again, you're the man. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This has been fun.